I grew up in a broken home. There was abuse in my parents' relationship. It made me sad to not see my dad because, I had no animosity towards him. I loved my dad, I loved my mom. I didn't understand why we were having supervised visits until later on, obviously, but it was a very confusing time for me. And I just remember my mom just being very, very sad. Like at night she would cry and I would try and comfort her because I couldn't sleep hearing her cry. I just remember like doing something wrong and my mom would just lash out at me and I didn't know what I did wrong. She would hit me, pull my hair, call me names, like so many names I wouldn't want to repeat. And I just grew up very sad because of that. I had a very low self-image. And not long after, when I was 5, I was inappropriately touched by a family member. I felt very alone. And I would escape to books, anything that I could take my mind off things that were happening. I was going to visit family members in Arizona, and I was dropped off by my mom and my grandfather to go see them for just 2 weeks to spend time with them. And I expected my mom to come pick me up because she had dropped me off. And my uncle told me as I was about to leave, he said, "You're gonna have to take a plane home, and Grandpa will pick you up." And I was thinking my mom would be there. And when we landed, my mom wasn't there. I remember going home to my grandfather's house because we were living with him at the time, and my mom still wasn't there. And I just remember overhearing them say, that she attempted suicide. And being 11, I didn't know what that was. I immediately looked up the word suicide in my children's dictionary at the time, just by sounding out the word. And when I read what it said, many times before my mom would lash out or get angry at me, I would forgive her immediately. But as soon as I seen that word, and I immediately thought, like, she wants to leave me and she wants to leave my brothers. And I got angry. Like, I didn't understand what she was going through. And I had anger towards her from that point on. My mom got out of the hospital and things kind of seemed to go back to normal. But whenever she would get angry at me, I told myself I was never going to cry again. That I would just toughen up and not show her that she got to me. But I still felt so sad and about my mom, because I still very much love my mom. And I really wanted to have that relationship that I was having with my dad with my mom. And so it felt like there was something missing. My brother started selling weed at that time. He started smoking pot, and then my dad got into smoking pot. I kept telling myself, I'm not going to do drugs, I'm not going to do it. But one day my brother came up to me and he said, "Jessica, you look really sad. If you smoke this pot, you're going to be happy." In that moment, I just thought, wow, I would really love to be happy. And so I started smoking pot. Shortly after, like within 2 months, I started drinking. And I just remember feeling like this numbness. I couldn't remember any pain. I just thought it was a great experience because I just wanted to forget. I just remember it was right before I turned 15, and I just remember being so high and so intoxicated. When the cops came, I just was laughing at the situation, and they put me on probation. So I had to visit a probation officer. An officer would come and search my room to make sure there wasn't any drugs. And within a few weeks, I adopted this attitude that I didn't care, that whatever I did, there was no consequences for me. I didn't care. Like, I just really didn't care. A couple of my friends and I, we got not drunk, but we were drinking. One of my friends got drunk, and she told them that she actually threw up and passed out in class, and then we all got kicked out. Like, they found that I was under the influence. It just kept spiraling out of control. Like, from getting kicked out of school, I just started experimenting with other drugs, meth, cocaine, shrooms, pills, different pills. And it was just so bad. And then I just remember having this friend that her grandmother had told me, if you want to hang out with her on a Wednesday night, you're going to have to come to church. I would go to church with her just to hang out with her, but we would get high in the bathroom, or we'd get high before coming to church. And so I never really got the message of Jesus. Eventually I stopped drinking as much, and I chose to have bad relationships. I didn't think about my future. I had a lot of anger. I was even diagnosed with depression. I remember taking Zoloft, was prescribed to me. But I remember reading the side effects and thinking, like, I don't want to get suicidal thoughts, even though I was very, 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 very depressed. I just went back to weed, and I just started smoking a lot. And then one day I thought, you know what? I really need to go get checked out by the doctor. I need to go to the doctor to get checked to see if I have any STDs. So I went, I got my test. At the time I was working at a salon. I had just graduated school, and I was working full time, and I was a receptionist there at the salon. And I remember the phone rang, I picked it up, and they asked for me. And I said, "This is she." And the doctor said, "Your test came back positive." Okay. Your test came back positive for 2 STDs. I just remember asking the doctor, "Is there any cure for them?" And she said, "For one, yes. The other one, you need to come in. And we're scheduling you an appointment for February 14th. And it was just after my 19th birthday. The doctor explained to me that I had precancerous cells on my cervix, and that I was high risk for cervical cancer, that I needed to come in every 6 months from now on. And I was very, very accepting of the outcome. I thought, man, I deserve this. It doesn't matter. My life doesn't matter. So I just remember working at the salon, and there was a man there that he was a very kind man. and he was a Christian. And he just said, Jessica, you should come to church. And I said, you know what, I think I will. Maybe God will hear me if I go to church. I got invited to Greg Laurie's Harvest Conference. I just remember like hearing the story of Jesus, and that Jesus, he's in heaven, and that if you give your life to him, you will be in heaven with Jesus. And I just remember wanting that. I just thought, you know what, I'm gonna die anyways, so I want to go with Jesus. And he asked everyone to come and give their lives to the Lord on the field. And I just remember walking onto that field and giving my life to Jesus, and I just immediately felt like, wow, I'm going to be with Jesus. I'm going to be with him. After that, I remember very clearly driving home from work from one day thinking, wow, something extraordinary is going to happen. But I couldn't pinpoint because I thought, I'm going to die and I'm going to be with Jesus. And I was like, is that it? You know, I just remember feeling so light and so free. One day, one of my friends that I had gotten high with, he called me and he said, hey Jess, are you free this Saturday to have to go to church? And I said, you know what, yes, I am free, because at the time I had no church. I had just given my life to the Lord, and I just went about my life, and that was it. And so when he asked me to come, I was like, sure. And so I went to church, and I just remember feeling like I was home. And I just couldn't get enough. I just kept coming every service. God had answered my prayer. And again, not in the way I thought, but that he gave me a new life, and that the old Jessica is dead. And I just remember all that shame that I had once felt. Like, I was like, I don't need to hold on to that anymore. Like, she's gone. That Jessica is gone. I was given a second chance, and that God wasn't holding my old self against me. At the time, I was still going to the doctors and being told that I had precancerous cells on my cervix, and the news didn't get any better. It was hard for me to accept God's love, because I had still held on a little bit of that shame, a little bit of that, those feelings that I had towards myself. And then God told me, you're having a hard time accepting my love because you haven't forgiven yourself. I just thought, oh my gosh, like, I haven't forgiven myself. I made a list to forgive all these people, and I hadn't forgiven myself. This whole time I was still accepting of dying to cancer. I thought, you know what? I need to forgive myself. God, help me to forgive myself. And I just remember, like, within a week, I think my appointment was, and I had gone to the doctor. After being examined, they said, you no longer have the precancerous cells on your cervix, and your lab work came back normal. And I was in shock. Like, I was just like, really? Like, that happened? And then I just remember driving home and just breaking down and crying, because I was like, God, like, you really have, like, healed me. You have really forgiven me, and you really love me. Like, because it was just so tangible in that moment. Like, I just felt his love. I was the only one saved in my family at the time, so I would just really lean on him. And I was just so thankful for his love, because I finally felt loved for the first time in my life. And I just remember going to church, and I was just like, God, I'm going to devote all my life to you. And I already had stopped doing drugs, like, right after getting saved. And this is like about 2 years after getting saved, when I got my healing from the precancerous cells. And I remember telling God, I'm not gonna date. I'm just gonna become a nun. Every year, God, I'm not gonna date for a year. And I did that for 3 years. And then the 4th year, I said, you know what, I'm not going to make an oath anymore. I'm just going to, you know, you already know my heart. You already know I don't want to date. 4 years later of like making that oath to God and like being saved for 4 years, a man of God prayed over me and he said, God is going to bring a man of God into your life and you're going to do ministry together. And it's so crazy that he prophesied that over me, because I was just like, I'm never going to date. I'm going to be single. Like, no one's going to want me anyways. I still held on a little bit of that, and I was just so shocked that God would say that to me, you know, because I just didn't feel like that was for me. And I just remember like a year to the day, almost a year, like a little over a year, I met my husband, and it was just crazy, because if God hadn't spoken that over me, I probably would have just ignored him. I probably wouldn't have made myself available. And that God is so good in that. And here I am, married to an awesome man of God. Shortly after that, I think 3 years later, we got married. I'm coming to church with him now. I was going to another church, but now with him. Within 2 years, I think my mom started coming at 2 years after being married. So like it's been like 2 years now. And it's been a bumpy road, but I've always wanted to have a good relationship with my mom. Like, God has helped me to forgive my mom, even though it's painful to talk about the things of the past. Today, my mom is saved. She's coming to church. God has restored our relationship, and I'm truly, truly grateful that he is so powerful and so loving. Because honestly, I don't think either one of us could have mended it on our own. God has showed us how to forgive, and he showed us how to love, and to not keep any record of wrongs. I think that's a huge thing. It's like, you can't keep a record of wrongs if you're gonna truly love someone. You can't. And that's what he showed me. I'm just so grateful and thankful, because, oh my gosh, who knows where I would have been. If you're struggling with forgiving yourself, I would say that just give it to God. Like, he can help you forgive yourself. And all you gotta do is just pray to him, and just be patient, because God is very, very patient with you, and every little part of you matters to him. Like, every hurt, every pain. And all you gotta do is just give it to him, and he will heal you from every pain. Like, you really can lean on God, and he will comfort you if you need comfort, and he will strengthen you if you need strength. And that's all I gotta say is just give him the chance. Just give him the chance to do that work in you.